happy to be joined by legendary angel investor of Silicon Valley. You're a businessman yourself. You're extremely innovative, Mr. Tim Draper. How are you doing today?
Terrific. Great to be here on your show, Jacob.
So, first off, I know you were briefly an Indiana resident at one point. You lived in East Chicago, Indiana, if I'm correct, very briefly, but you were born in East Chicago, if I'm correct.
I was born in Highland Park, but my parents lived in East Chicago, Illinois. I mean, Indiana. Yeah,
Right across the border.
you bet.
So, take me through, of course, when you grew up, education was always a very big and important thing. Um, what was some of the values that you learned from an early age?
Well, a lot of the values that you learn in school um, translate, and a lot of them don't. So, the things you learn in school about, work and how it's good to learn. I think those are really important. And the ones that schools don't do as good a job of are guiding you toward your your mission in life, or guiding you toward helping other people. I think schools, by being focused just on the individual, miss the whole point, because when you get out of school, you will no longer be focused just on yourself, but on your team. So it's um, probably some of the most important things that you learn in school are, if you're on a football team or a dance troupe or something, because that's when you are working with your peers. You're trying to make something successful happen, and it's not all on you, it's on the entire group, and you can pull it together. At Draper University, we teach in team-based learning, and it makes a big difference. People work a lot harder when they're working for their team than they do just for working for themselves. So I think there's some things that are wrong about how schools are teaching today. And I think that there are some big opportunities for schools to change. So I'm not sure that's the answer you were looking for, but that's the answer I'm giving, which is the world changes. It evolves. There was a time when schools were set up for the right reasons, doing the right things, and that was the instructor and all the students, and the instructor knew how to read and the students didn't. The instructors knew math, the students didn't, and it was a great program. Now, schooling might be not, that model may not work, um, because I think people learn a lot more from each other and from conversation than they do from sitting in a classroom. So, um, my advice is your education, it's good when you're in school, grind it out, do your homework, work, do it all. But know that when you're out, you will be a part of a team, whether that's a family or your business or whatever. And your learning doesn't stop. In fact, it sort of accelerates, because the more you learn in school, the more you can learn out there when you're doing something big.
I appreciate you sharing that with me and going into deep lengths on that specific um, thing with the education system. So thank you so much for sharing that. Of course, I see you have a Bitcoin tie on. Where do you see Bitcoin going in the future? You've been involved with it for a while. Obviously, people my age are starting to ask about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. Some still don't even know what it is. But explain to me where you see Bitcoin going with the millennial and the Gen Z generation as we're next up to make big investments if we haven't already.
So, yeah, if you don't own Bitcoin and you don't have a Bitcoin wallet, you've been living under a rock. But the way I look at it is, it's an anthropological leap forward. It is a leap for humanity. Whereas, it used to be people traded shells and then they traded gold because they could value the gold and they got richer because of it. And then they traded the promise of gold and everybody got richer there because that trust was built throughout the economy and it was easier to trade the trust of gold than trade gold. And then it was the faith of a government where they in you'd hand out a fiat bill like a dollar, and that way you get this additional trust, and that trust then is spread, and having that faith in that currency allowed people to get even wealthier. Well, today we now have a currency, Bitcoin, that can be accepted everywhere. It is it keeps perfect records. Bitcoin blockchain has never been hacked, knock on wood. Whereas banks get hacked all the time. The it is not subject to political whims. If some politician decides to spend a whole bunch of dollars, your dollars become worth less. Um, and so the moment I can buy my food, my clothing, my shelter, and pay my taxes all in Bitcoin, um, that'll be a moment where I no longer need to hold on to any dollars, and there will be no reason to hold on to dollars. So longer term, I think we've got a currency here for the next millennial. We've got a currency that will last for many generations to come, and it's accepted everywhere, and it keeps perfect records, and it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere, and it's checked on by all those different miners all over the world. So you've got this is a big leap forward, and it's the equivalent of going from horseback to going to an automobile. It's that big.
For sure. And obviously you've invested in a lot of different types. What would you say currently, if you don't mind me asking, maybe your best crypto one? And obviously this is always going to be changing. I've interviewed Chris of Ripple. So obviously the markets are always changing. I always see his is up and down on the Forbes list and things like that. But which one would you say in the last really year or two, and you think this year as well and next year, which cryptocurrency exchange or company do you see the most success in the immediate future, and also based off the track record?
Well, it's Bitcoin because what happens is and you've seen it happen. Bitcoin had about a 40% market share on its first boom. And then there was a bust. And then it boomed again and it had about a 50% market share. And then there was a bust. And then it boomed again and it had a 60% market share. So it's a gravitational pull toward Bitcoin. There will be other currencies, other cryptocurrencies that have new advances and new developments, and new apps will be developed around them. But eventually, all those apps will be developed around Bitcoin too, and it ends up being the place where most of the gravitational pull goes.
I appreciate you sharing that. And of course, you mentioned the app thing. I see ads all the time now from Coinbase, from Robinhood, so many different ones. I know some of those companies you've been involved with as well. So yeah. And then if you don't mind me asking, what's kind of maybe one of your favorite investments that you've done, from just an aspect of you really enjoyed working with that person?
Well, I like working with entrepreneurs in general. Um, my favorite investments um, are the ones that have had the biggest impact. And so those probably, I think Hotmail, they were the first free web-based email. And now everybody who uses email should be thanking the Hotmail founders for what they did. Skype, because they were the first ones to do free audio calls and now free video calls, which is one that we're using right now. And um, and then Tesla got to be the most valuable company that we ever invested in, unless you consider Bitcoin a company. Um, and because it reached $1 trillion in market cap. Market cap is the total value of a company. And so I'd say those were some of my more exciting. Now today, I backed Colossal, which is bringing back the woolly mammoth, and I backed a couple of companies that are sort of creating, ways to clone people to do different things, clone animals, people, whatever. Um, we have a bunch, SpaceX, that's a fantastic investment for us. And it's opening up space in a way none of us had imagined. We have a company that will probably be able to block the sun enough to lower the temperature of the Earth back down, with space stations up there. Uh, there are so many creative entrepreneurs doing so many creative things. It's a joy and an honor to be a venture capitalist in this field.
For sure. And then one question I kind of wanted to close with that I think is important on a lot of people's minds, and people always want me to ask people in positions like yourself this question is, you've been involved in philanthropy and business leadership at the highest roles. How do you think wealth and influence can be used most efficiently to address income inequality? And this is a question that, just a lot of people want me to ask. And I obviously don't know what your response is going to be to it, but if you don't mind me asking.
Yeah. Well, I think the highest and best use of any money is to invest in human endeavor, because human endeavor makes all of our lives better. And you could say, well, there's inequality because Jeff Bezos is rich and I'm not. And I didn't invest, I didn't benefit from Amazon in any way other than as a consumer. And as a consumer, I can get a toothbrush in 4 hours because of Jeff Bezos. It's Yeah, I can push a button and get, my groceries. They show up in three hours. I can get a printer. It shows up in a day and a half. None of that would have ever happened without Jeff Bezos. So yes, he got wealthy, but so did everyone else. Everybody benefited from Amazon being out there. We are all so much richer because Amazon exists. So these few people that have made so much money have also made our lives so much better. And we should appreciate what they've done. The fact that we didn't do it and we didn't get rich from it, I feel like that is, if you feel like somehow because he has it and you don't, you're thinking maybe you should have a culture of need rather than a culture of opportunity. I think you should look at that and say, hey, I saw Jeff Bezos do what he did. I think I can do better. And I think you should look at the world and try to do better. Now, if you think everybody should get the same thing, that Jeff Bezos should have the same thing you do and everything he has, that you have everything he has and he has everything you have, then you should go look at North Korea or Cuba. The people there are starving and they have it all, everything's government run. It's all socialist. It's all equal, but they're all equally poor. Sure, capitalism creates a few poor people. There are people that are starving in capitalism, but the entire country of North Korea is starving because they've done it that way. They try to make everybody exactly equal in what their outcome is. Now, I think an equal opportunity is very important, but equal outcome is a bad idea. And you see countries like throughout Africa, and they have leaders that basically try to do the same thing. They try to keep everybody the same, except for themselves, of course. And there's no opportunity there. If you build something great in Kenya or more Nigeria, you create some extraordinary business in Nigeria, government just takes it from you and then they spread it around to the people or whatever. And then there's no incentive to do any work and nobody builds anything of any value. So as much as capitalism has its flaws, capitalism is 100 times, wait, sorry, 460 times as good as socialism or communism. And you can just ask any Korean, North or South, because the South Koreans make 460 times what the average North Korean makes. The average South Korean is now 4 inches taller than the average North Korean. Average North Korean is starving. Average South Korean's doing very well. Capitalism works. People should stop complaining and start working and create something great for the world, for the community. Instead of thinking, what can the world do for me? Start thinking about what you can do for the world, what you can do for other people, how you can help other people. And don't think about how somebody's rich and I'm not, or somebody's rich and somebody else is not. Don't worry about that. Go out there and become rich. Go do something extraordinary. Make everybody's life better. Do what Jeff Bezos did.
I appreciate you sharing your insight on what you believe in. Obviously, as the interviewer, I never give my opinion on it. So you would never know because my job is so anybody who watches this can make an opinion off of that right there. But I appreciate you sharing your insight on this topic because everyone has an opinion on it. It's one of those issues. And then, kind of the last thing I wanted to close with is what advice would you have obviously, you kind of hit on it in your question, but is there any other advice you want to maybe add on top in just a few words?
Yeah, I'm old, so the people around me, I've seen the outcome. And the outcome is the people who think of themselves end up depressed, drug addicts, alcoholics. Life's not good for them. The people who think of other people, how do I improve the lives of the people around me? How do I create a product or a service that people are willing to pay for? How do I delight my customer? How do I give them something they've never had before and get them to pay for it? Those people are doing great. Their lives are great. They're happy, they're delighted. And so I guess my advice is go out, do things for other people, help other people, build a business. As soon as you start building a business, you'll start understanding the world, how the world works. And when you're talking to someone, talk to old people. Find out what they did for a living or what they do for a living. Because then you can start put together that patchwork quilt that is our global economy. You can't, I mean, if you want to, you know, if I wanted to have a glass of milk and and I didn't have all these people around me doing all these great things, I wouldn't know the first thing about raising cattle, milking a cow, pasteurizing the milk, getting it delivered to me, put into a refrigerator. I wouldn't know the first thing about how to build a refrigerator. You need people around you doing all those things to make your life the way it is. So you need people who make those clothes on your back, the ear pods in your ears, the stuff behind you, the desk. All that stuff was made by people who are innovating, who are trying stuff, who are entrepreneurs. Some of them failed, some of them succeeded, but they did really great stuff for the world. So keep that in mind that we are all a part of an ecosystem that is working because you've got capitalism, because you've got an opportunity to do business. It works together in a way that it's almost impossible for any one person to fathom how much everyone around them does for them, and how much they can do for other people by creating something of value.
For sure. Well, Tim, I appreciate you joining the Jacob Viewer Show today, um, and sharing your insights on it. I can't wait to read the comments. That's something I really get to enjoy because I get to hear what people are thinking after I interview people. So I appreciate you sharing different insights today on the show. Um, and thank you so much again.
Terrific. Yeah, send me the comments.
I will.
That'd be great. All of them, unfiltered, all of them.